So we're swimming to the other side because we have to pull security to make sure the coast is clear. As we're swimming, we're trying to stay close together, but far enough apart that we don't touch each other.
Right.
And so as we're swimming, the guys behind us can watch us because they're seeing our glob trails. And we go, bump. And I'm like, what's that? He's like, I don't know, what's that? So they would see us swim away from each other, and then we would go, bump. And so the whole way, they're hearing us going, ah.
Welcome to TYRO TV. I'm Ron Tijerina.
And I'm Cathy Tijerina.
Welcome to part 2 of TYRO TV with Ramon. Everybody loves Ramon.
Hey, you want to start a new show? That would be a great series, by the way. Instead of Everyone Loves
Raymond.
Yeah, it would be Everyone Loves Ramon.
Ramon.
So as we get into today, we just want to let you know we're going to hear more about his experience in the military, some more lessons that he learned through that experience, how he met his wife, and the course his life has taken from then.
So we have been really enjoying the time that we spent together in part 1. And so we really want to just recap a little bit what we talked about. You know, we talked about you in the child. There was a phrase you used from the Filipino culture called haya. Mm-hmm. What does that mean again?
It means to save face or to not bring shame on your family.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's a strong word because the families that we work with and the men and women that we get to talk to across the world, really, you know, we've done things, we wind up in prison, we wind up incarcerated, and to own our story means that we got to own that part of the story, bringing shame to the family name. And I remember when I was incarcerated, I wrote a letter to my family. You know, I apologized. I told them I was sorry. Even though I was innocent what I was convicted of, I still brought shame to the name because I put myself in a place where nobody could take me at my word.
Yes.
Right? And so that's huge. And I think that's something that's missing in our culture today. When we own our story, apologizing, and then when you reinvent yourself and clean it up, realize we don't want to make those mistakes again. Don't bring shame to the name or your new reputation that you built for yourself.
But also not letting struggles put that false shame and hold you back and create hopelessness and helplessness, right? Like, oh, I'm stuck. I have to pretend. This false bravado, that's not going to get you where you want to go. And I love that that's part of your story, Ramon, as we talk about this quiet strength. And if you missed the last show, you want to go back and watch that because then you will know that you are watching one of the 3 that made it through this sniper school in the Army. And so we're excited to hear more about that. So if you could just kind of really quickly, like in a minute, summarize your story to this point, and then when we come back, we're going to pick up from where you left off.
Yeah, I was just sharing a little bit about the background that it came from, how our family was behind closed doors. We let everything out, and it was pretty destructive. And yet, in front of everyone, we wore masks, and you don't share your feelings. You don't let anybody know that you're having some sort of difficulty. And also realizing that, you know, I realized that I can't stay there. I can't keep this going on. It has to be broken.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So
super excited to hear more.
So when we come back, we're going to dive deep into Ramon. Did I say it right?
Ramon.
Yeah, you say it better than me. You say it better than me.
We'll dive deep into the rest of Ramon's story, so stay tuned. You don't want to miss this. We'll be right back.
TYRO Dads will help you to see who you really are on the inside by coming to terms with your past, present, and future. You'll begin to move forward by using your time on the inside to transform yourself. We know you're not the only one serving time. Your family is too. Overcoming the issues that existed prior to and during incarceration are often more than what many families can survive. TYRO Dads has a unique method of reaching and healing families based on Ron and Cathy Tijerina's own personal experiences. TYRO Dads works exclusively with incarcerated fathers who have minor children. The program lasts for 10 weeks and focuses on intensive character development. You'll be taught to take responsibility for your actions. to own it. You'll be prepared to overcome the obstacles of incarceration and transition back into your home and community, both successfully and permanently. Upon successful completion of this program, you will earn the title of TYRO, which means a warrior, someone learning something new. You will be one of the honored, a man worth following. If you think you have what it takes to be a TYRO, or you want to know more, contact your local project facilitator or your institution staff.
Welcome back to TYRO TV. Today we have in the studio with us Ramon Lianez.
And so we are so excited to hear the rest of your story. So in the last show, we ended with you making the transition from the Marines to the Army. And we were starting to talk a little bit about that cultural shift and how that was different. You also shared that as you went through this, that you were 150 guys started, and then at the end, there were really just 3 of you left standing. And so can you tell us more about the transition between those two cultures and what you learned in the midst of that?
All my life, I have been floating between groups, okay, trying to identify with particular groups. And from that, I realized that I just needed to be myself, whatever and whoever that may be. And also realizing that sometimes it's best to be part of the group that you find yourself in, that is speaking life into you, that is heading towards the same goals that you're trying to.
Like minds attract.
Yeah, absolutely. And because they are like-minded, they're putting a emphasis and sacrifice in their own life to go towards those same goals. You're not going by yourself. You are.
Yes.
You're traveling together with a group of people.
So we have a saying here: there is no such thing as a one-man show, or success is never a one-man show.
That's right. Right. There's no such thing as Rambos.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
And I just dated myself. 'Cause some people don't realize who that is, by the way.
Rambo, what's that?
Rambo. Yeah, we had like 6 guys in our reconnaissance team, our scout sniper team, and we all depended on one another. And so I realized with those guys, I could be who I am, and yet be able to help them be who they are and work and grow into the person that they were supposed to be.
So constantly feeding one another, but building each other up to where you're all becoming the best leaders you can for one another.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. One of the things that the military taught me in that group is that you have to know what the other person's doing. Because if something happens to them, you're supposed to step into their role so that the mission gets taken care of and becomes successful. And that they can depend on you, that if something happens to them, you would do anything and everything necessary to strengthen them and to pull them out of that situation. So one of the greatest things that happened to me was Sergeant Huerta. Okay? He was a ranger. And he and Sergeant Rangel, he was in charge of our whole platoon, and they came from a pretty rough background, but they learned to bring everybody together based on their strengths and also identify their weaknesses, but help us grow.
Yeah.
And that helped me realize what a leader's really supposed to do.
Wow.
That you're supposed to care for your people. It's not so much always about the mission, as far as it's not about programs, it's about people.
Yes.
And so breathing life into them, taking care of each one of them, making them realize that they're important and they're valued.
Let me go back a little bit, because one of the things I'm hearing you say is how these men, the commonality that you guys came from a rough background, but knowing that, okay, their fathers, your father, my father, it wasn't their fault that they couldn't impart that type of lesson that you learned in the military. They could only give us what they had. Right. And so maybe our dads weren't the best leaders, but they gave us their best. And even though it fell short of what we really needed as young men growing up to become that strong leader, right? Now you were able to take that and stop that generational, what we call generational curse, right? So how did you translate all that now get out of the military. Now you're in real life.
Yeah, and I'm even gonna go back
Yeah.
further because in the last show you shared that you were even involved with a gang, and so I'm even curious, like, how did you get out of the gang? Was it the
Oh, yeah.
military? Was it college? And so we're throwing a million questions at you at the same time. But just talking about that transition, I guess, out of the gang, and then how you took the lessons you learned. Oh, you know what? We're getting way ahead of ourselves. Let's
Yeah.
talk about how'd you get out of the gang and how'd you meet your wife?
The gang that we had was mainly for protection of our families. It wasn't to the degree where you see some gangs where it becomes their livelihood. It becomes
Right.
the means of just having it, in a sense, an identity. A lot of our fathers were gone in the military. A lot of us were, in a position of being the protector of our family, of our brothers and sisters. So we grouped together for that specific reason. Leaving wasn't all that hard.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't like there was a, blood in, blood out
Right.
kind of
Okay.
situation. So, and then I ended up just going to the Marine Corps.
Okay.
And they realized that's what was going to happen. So,
Okay.
Okay, so it wasn't like once a gang member, always a gang member.
no.
It was a little bit, okay, that's good.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, we got to pause.
Okay.
When we come back, we're going to talk more about. I want you to share one story with some sort of lesson from your time, like something that you experienced. One story from your time in the Army or the Marines, and then we want to hear about your wife. So stay tuned. You're going to learn more from Ramon when we come back.
Welcome back to TYRO TV. We do hope you have been enjoying this segment with Ramon. I don't know where that came from. But we have been having a great time listening to his journey, his story, the struggles, the victories. And now we want to talk about, really, let's share some stories that impacted you that maybe can help us put our life in perspective and how we can overcome situations.
Yeah. Just tell us a story or an anecdote about something that you experienced during your time in the service.
I was in jungle operations school in Panama. We were going for our jungle expert badge. There was this guy named Brandon.
Really?
Yes. And he was from Georgia.
Okay.
And him and I were picked to swim across this river called the Chagres.
Okay.
Right? It was really, really early in the morning. So it's like in the middle of the night, so to speak. And there is a kind of crocodile, you would call it. It's called the caiman.
Oh, man.
Okay, plus bull sharks were swimming up into the river. So, but there's this thing called photoalgae. And when you disturb it, they become little green globs.
Oh,
So you don't know if a light's being shined on a caiman, and that's caiman eyes, or that's the
Oh,
algae.
man.
So him and I were swim partners. We had to look out for each other. And so we're going across.
Now, how wide is the river?
Oh, my goodness. It's pretty wide. I mean, there are parts of that river that are, I would say, probably half a mile or more wide.
my.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, so you
Wow.
Okay.
So you're
to see the
seriously
other,
swimming.
yeah. So we're swimming to the other side because we have to pull security to make sure the coast is clear. As we're swimming, we're trying to stay close together, but far enough apart that we don't touch each other.
Right.
And so as we're swimming, the guys behind us can watch us because they're seeing our glob trails. And we go, bump. And I'm like, what's that? He's like, I don't know, what's that? So they would see us swim away from each other, and then we would go, bump. And so the whole way, they're hearing us going,
As you bump into
yes,
each
we
other.
bump into each other.
So you're like scared in the dark.
Oh, yeah. And it's dark out there. I mean, at least if you go into the jungle part, you go into I would say the jungle. Some of us would call it the woods. You have triple canopy, so you can't see anything.
Wow.
So when you have the river, it's broken. You know. The reason why I'm sharing this is because the oddity of he was my partner. Okay, sometimes him and I didn't get along. But he was the guy that I was supposed to look out for, and he was supposed to look out for me. And we had moments of laughing and stuff. You know, when we got to the other side, we were thankful for each one of us being there, and knowing that no came and got us. It was globs of little, because we could look back and see that it was just a bunch of blobs of algae, and but I was dependent on him, you know, and he was dependent on me, and we knew that we would do whatever was necessary to take care of one another. I've lost contact with him, but I really believe that, you know, in your life, people are going to come along that help you move forward, like swimming across a river, you know, in the middle of the night in the jungle. And for that time, you know, appreciate them. You know, and I had to learn how to
friendships like that are very necessity for our growth, you know, and not taking them for granted.
Don't take them for granted.
To get you across to the other side. I love that. I love that. That's awesome. Okay, so now I want to hear, how did you meet your wife? So now you left the Marines and went to the Army because you wanted a wife. Now, how'd you meet her? What's the story?
Okay, so when I was partly going through college, and I was dating a girl, and she and I broke up. She told me that she was basically going to see a guy named Jody. Unfortunately, the songs that we sang when we were marching and running, the name Jody comes up.
Oh,
so I was always reminded that this guy named Jody. You know, there's a part that goes, "Jody's back at home with your girl alone." And I'm like, dude, this is not cool, you know. So I know. So I go into the barracks, and I just, out of laughter, I said, "Does anybody got a sister or a mother or an aunt that's not seeing anybody right now?" And this guy raises his hand. He goes, "I got a sister named Carmen." And I'm like, So for 3 years, him and I would joke about it, and 3 years later, I meet her.
Wow.
Yeah. He said that I called him up. He was going to Ohio State at the time, and I calls him. I would call him up, and he said, "Look, you got to meet Carmen because she's seeing a guy that I don't like." So I'm like, "Well, what makes you think that she's going to like me?"
Right.
So anyway, long story short, we met. She was going to a college. I went and saw her. I was having a drinking problem, and I had issues that night, so I took her out the next night and told her we were going to get married.
Wow.
Really? The second date?
The second date.
And she still saw you again?
Yeah, I know. She regrets it even now. It's been 30 years. So.
30
That's
years.
One of the things I tell women, if the guy tells you right away he's going to marry you, you better get out. So when we come back, we're going to hear more about the journey of Ramon. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I'm Ron Tijerina.
And I'm Cathy Tijerina.
And together we have been working with tens of thousands of couples for the last 2 decades.
And we have been helping couples understand that nobody's right and nobody's wrong. They're just each seeing it from their own perspective and unable to bridge together.
So when's the last time you were in a discussion with your significant other or your spouse and you had a disagreement over something so small that turned into something so big?
So many of the couples we work with have this experience where they argue about something because they only see it from their own perspective.
So I'm looking at it from my vantage point, and guess what? Frankly, I'm only want to see it my way, because it's my way or the what? The highway.
Over time, what happens is these issues start to pile up and they create more and more distance between couples. And so now we're arguing about every small thing because we have to defend our perspective.
As we began arguing, it really was apparent whose side I was on. I wasn't on her side and she wasn't on my side. In fact, we were on opposite teams.
We became enemies, and what was more important for us was to be right than for us to actually understand each other. When couples do this, they continue to erode their relationship. What you need to do is get the issues out from between you, move them out in front of you, and remember that you're a team able to navigate through anything together by seeing all sides of the issue.
Now remember, there is nothing more important than us.
In this dynamic program that's internationally recognized, you're going to learn how to resolve conflict, how to get on the same page and listen for understanding. Couple communication, which was written by Dr. Sherrod Miller and Dr. Phyllis Miller, will actually help you be on the same team and recognize the power of resolving conflict together.
One of the greatest tools that you're going to embrace is really coming to the understanding that what you've been doing is natural, but this is learned behavior, and we're about ready to take you to a next level on how to enhance your relationship.
Now, if you're sick and tired of having all of these petty issues come between you, if you are exhausted from every time that you have interaction with your spouse, it turns into drama, then this is where you want to be. You want to sign up for couple communication. You want to take this program together, and I guarantee you that you are going to love it.
Stop telling yourself that tomorrow you're going to do better. Stop saying to yourself, tomorrow I'll find that program. Today's your opportunity to do something not only for yourself, but for all those around you.
In couple communication, you're going to learn a brand new process. This process is going to help you avoid ever fighting over petty stuff again. It's going to take you to a new level in your relationship as you learn how to listen for understanding, to clearly articulate and share from your own experience. You're going to get on the mats. You're going to have notepads. You're going to learn skills that you're going to be like, wow, if only I had known this at the beginning.
It's not too late. We are all on this journey. We are all on this continuous improvement plan. But guess what? You have to take the first step and let today be that first step for you and your significant other.
If you're ready to like each other again and be on the same team, this is the program for you. Sign up today.
Welcome back to TYRO TV. Today we have with us Ramon Lianez.
We're hearing all of these stories about Ramon. From the last episode, we heard about his childhood, how he got involved into a gang, and then from there into the Marines, from there into the Army. And now he's just been catching us up on some lessons he learned in the Army that really are applicable to everyday life. And so in this last major segment, as we hear about his story before he shares some final points, tell us about the discipline that you learned, the importance of being a protector, and how you got out of it. You shared that you had a drinking problem that as you got together with Carmen. What really woke you up to transform you into the leader that you are today?
Becoming the leader was part of my upbringing and my job. Indirectly, I learned from my father, because he spent time with my brothers and talked to them about leadership.
Wow.
Matter of fact, my brother born after me, his name is Raul, but we call him Boogie. He just retired from being the commander of the Marine Corps base in Hawaii.
Wow.
Yeah. And
wow.
I'm not saying I was always compared to Boogie,
Right.
but it was in my mind I did.
Right.
What ended up happening was with me, and what brought me to change was when I was in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, one of the sergeants came up to me and started asking me questions about being whether or not I'm a Christian. And so they shared the gospel with me, him and the chaplain, which started a different mindset and mind thought, So what ended up happening was when I got back from Saudi and I ended up getting married, I say Saudi, but we were in Iraq. What ended up happening was I got married, and I brought all those things into my family that I did not want. Okay, adultery, pornography. I was addicted to porn. Even though I was in the military, I knew ways of doing drugs and trying to, I was just a mess.
Right.
And the anger mostly. So I put my hands on Carmen. I never did that before. I wasn't striking her. I didn't strike the baby, Bradley, our oldest son at the time. But he was having night terrors, and I was pretty mean. And one night we got in an argument. She thought I was going to go to Brad And she got between me and Bradley, and I grabbed her and I threw her across the room. And that's when I realized something's wrong here, you know. And I just prayed and said, you got to, I don't know what to do or how to do it. You just have to take over. And over the years, I started going to counseling. I started taking medication. I started slowly. I had to accept that sometimes all this change is going to happen slowly.
Right.
And it's not going to happen overnight. And so that's kind of what happened with me. I mean, I can go into a lot of the things, but it was my mother-in-law had said to me one time, this is when both boys were getting older, Bradley and Corey, and Carmen and I were still having some issues. She said to me, it's never too late. It's never too late. And I always felt like failure, you know, I never wanted to fail. And so I was always putting marks of success in my mind.
Right.
But then when I would argue with Carmen or yell at the kids or whatever, I would think more of failure. And even though I compartmentalized the world and said, you know, everything outside of the house, if that's all doing good, I'm doing good. But then when I realized I'm just being a hypocrite to my family,
Wow.
because the people that are the most important to me and they really know who I am are my wife and kids.
Right.
Yeah.
So no, it doesn't matter what I do out there, how much money I'll make, you know, all these awards that I might get, whatever. If I come home and Carmen and the boys are not peaceful or they don't feel loved by me or realize the man that you guys see is not the man that I see, then I'm really messing up.
Yeah.
So that's what ended up happening.
So what do you do now? So as you making this transition and saying, you know what, no more pretense. I need to be that protector first at home. So then what is that transition? What are you doing now?
And I'm not saying this because I'm trying to make it sound like pastors don't have problems.
Right.
But even if before I was a pastor, I would get into the Word and read what the Bible has to say first and foremost. I went to 12-step programs and started running the program myself, realizing that, you know, there is someone greater than me. And then listening to my wife.
Wow.
Because she knows where I'm at. She knows my triggers.
So truly, she became that best friend.
She became that best friend.
Yeah.
Yes, a partner, a helper.
So
then there are men like you that would come alongside me, that you keep those people around you, like I talked about, and they speak into my life.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
Wow. Well, we have to take our last and final break before we come back, and we'll finish up with a few last tips from Ramon. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to TYRO TV. Today we have been enjoying our time with Ramon, and we do hope you have been enjoying it and really gleaming from his life experiences and his stories. You know, all of us have a story to tell, but that's the key. You got to tell your story in order to really move ahead in life.
So as we conclude, what are some final, maybe it's a final story, maybe it's final pointers, or maybe advice that you'd like to give our listeners? We've got about 2 minutes. So if there's something you'd like to share, we'd really like you to share it.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that I believe is extremely important to share is I have shared the past that I had with my father, but I'm not sharing the present.
Oh, good word.
When I was 40, it was probably about 2 or 3 in the morning. You know, something came to me, and I believe, you know, it was the Holy Spirit speaking to me, and it says, he says, I've forgiven you, but have you forgiven your father?
Mm.
And I'm like, don't have me do this.
Wow.
Because we would try to avoid one another in some sense, or at least I know I was avoiding him. And so I call him up, and what would typically happen is my mom would pick up the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, at least if I call, she picks up the phone, I got a way out. Right? He picked up the phone.
Wow.
And he goes, my nickname's Moan. Mm-hmm. And he goes, Moan? And I go, yeah, Dad. He's like, what's going on? Is everything okay? And I could hear his concern, which is maybe something I didn't realize or even think that he would show, because in my mind, I painted a picture of Dad a certain way.
Right.
He ended up showing true concern.
Yeah.
And I just said, Dad, I love you, and I'm sorry for the kind of son I was being towards you, and if I put you through a lot of mess, and I said, I forgive you too for leaving. So we just started talking. And now I have a relationship with my father that I've never had in the past. And that has helped me because I've realized my father is a man. He is a human being that makes mistakes. So am I. So are other people. And it helped me grow closer to him, and yet it even helped me grow closer to my own boys. So, it was just right now that I was thinking, I got to share that.
Thank you for that. I know all of us men who are, if you're currently incarcerated, or those of us who have been formerly incarcerated, we all have a story about our dads, right? And I'm fortunate, and we're fortunate. I get to see my sons all the time. But I want to share something with you. And listen, you guys out there, ladies out there, this is important. Reconciliation is what it means to be a TYRO. TYRO is a Latin word. It means apprentice, novice, someone learning something new, a warrior. And sitting with you here, you have clearly demonstrated and exemplified what it means to not only go through it, but overcome it and live to tell about it. And now you're speaking life into many, many other people and all those who come to your platform and what God has allowed you to do. And so I want to give you this. Cathy and I want to share this with you. And you served in the military, so this is specifically for you, right? And again, I say thank you for your service, and I mean that with my heart.
Yes.
TYRO here, and so we want to give you this hat because you are a TYRO.
Thank
a
you.
man worth following.
Thank you, Ramon.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being so transparent and sharing your story. And we want to thank you, our viewers and our listeners, for joining us on this journey to learn more about Ramon and more about what it means to overcome, reconcile, and to be a strong protector, that strength, that inner strength.
And that strength, I love what you said, you're quiet, but you're strong. Hey, listen, thank you for letting us be part of your journey. Until next time, always remember that we are rooting for you.